Brilliant. Champions League group stage has come to an end. We now know who's headed to the knockout stages. Kevin Egan alongside Francis Maxwell here on 120 Sports doing box to box. And Francis, I need to know, who's the dark horse for the Champions League now?
Kev, I hate to call them a dark horse because a team that made the Champions League final 2 out of the last 3 years should not be called a dark horse. But it's in our nature to underestimate Atletico Madrid, and I will continue to make the case that they should be considered to be teams to look at, a team to look out for every year. But they will still be considered the dark horse. They've conceded the least amount of goals in the Champions League group stage, alongside Juventus, only conceding 2 goals out of 6 games. Especially when you're in a group, Kev, with Bayern Munich, a team that notoriously will bang in goals in on their opponents. But Atletico Madrid, you picked up on this a lot of times, and I really appreciate your coverage on this. They're starting to play a little sexier this year. They're starting to definitely attack more so in numbers, not rely so much so on their defensive capabilities, despite the fact that they have a great defensive record in the Champions League. It has somewhat hindered their performance in La Liga. But in the Champions League, they've looked so confident. They've looked so comfortable, especially against teams like Bayern Munich, who on paper are superior to them. So how can you not look at Atletico Madrid and think, amidst all these teams that are consistently put atop the teams to look out from the Champions League, that Atletico Madrid are not a team to consider to go all the way and finally get over that final hurdle this year?
Man, you have been taking your crazy pills. You really, really have. You're having Atletico Madrid, like you rightly said, Champions League finalists 2 out of the last 3 years. A team that topped the group comfortably with maximum points before the final day, beating Bayern Munich. You have them as a dark horse. Look, I can see where you're coming from. They're not talked about as much as the other teams, but I certainly don't think they fall into the second tier of teams. A team in the second tier for me that I think is a dark horse, maybe even third tier of the teams left in this competition, is Sampaoli's Sevilla. A different side altogether than the one that won the Europa League under Unai Emery over the past few years. He's brought in his own type players. The likes of Vitolo is playing very well up front as well. Samir Nasri, when fit and in this team, has been sensational in his central midfield role. They play an incredibly attractive style where they keep the ball, they play 3 at the back, they play a high line. In many ways, it's kamikaze stuff, but it's brilliant to watch. And I just think if they can get their mojo going, Sevilla. They drew last weekend in La Liga. Actually, they lost, to Granada. A disappointing loss. Hugely disappointing when you think about it. But Sevilla, for me, are an outside bet. You get good odds on them. And with Sampaoli in charge, they've got a remarkable manager that I think they might be a dark horse. Throw Monaco in there as well, I think.
Kev, I think if you listened close enough after that final whistle went on the last game for Sevilla, you would have heard a massive sigh of relief from everyone playing in the Europa League this year, because as Sevilla graduated through into the round of 16, top of their group, it eliminated them from ever competing in the Europa League this year. So therefore, everyone was safe because the back-to-back champions of the Europa League were not allowed to go forward and retain their title again.
I'll throw one other name out there. Porto. They demolished Leicester today and they played really well, but Portuguese football is on the rise, and I'm not just talking about the national scene as well. Sporting Lisbon, unlucky this year. They faced a really tricky group, obviously, with Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid, but also Benfica, a really good team. I can see Porto maybe causing a few teams a surprise. Can you?
I think so, and it brings me back to one of the most horrific periods in my in my life, as a football supporter, when the Porto team went back-to-back years of winning the Champions League and then winning the UEFA Cup, as it was called then, at the hands of my beloved Glasgow Celtic. But let's not depress ourselves here, Kev. Let's throw it over to the fans. What do you think? Who is the dark horse this year in the Champions League? Let us know right here. 120 Sports and all of our clips on demand, box to box.